Today, from an undisclosed location in Utah, from my brand new 2022 toy hauler, I'm going to talk to you guys about Starlink. Starlink is a very interesting internet solution that I've had for a while. Of course, I have the RV version, but you can get the more residential or business version depending upon your situation. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is Starlink, the pros, the cons, and is it valuable for you? Is it actually a privacy-based internet today in operation? Satellite internet. So a lot of you guys have heard me talk about the MoFi, which I've talked in great lengths about, and I do really like the MoFi. I have it with me. So I have actually two MoFis with me. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 internet solutions with me, not counting the phone, and we're gonna break all of them down on this epic trip. I'm actually going to be, excuse the mess behind me, I'm traveling with a ton of gear, a ton of equipment, and I'm traveling with 4 kids, so, you know, stuff everywhere. Also, this is a brand new rig, so we're kind of getting the kinks worked out, getting everything built out. You can see cables and cord. Don't worry about any of that. We're going to be showing the whole process, because I want to show you guys how I use this tech in the field. I want to show you guys the reality of, you know, I talk about privacy, talk about nomads, talk about making money online, talking about building a business, talking about being a ghost, helping thousands of people become ghosts. I want to show you guys the reality behind the situation of how I use this. I feel like from the Privacy X offices, I talk to you guys about a lot of stuff, but I don't actually show you enough stuff. So this next series, because I'm going to be on the road for a while, meeting up with people, meeting up with some of my clients, bringing on a ton of new clients. Privacy X is growing and expanding, and we really appreciate your guys' support. But I'm super excited about the process up and coming, and I figured Starlink was a great option to kind of kick this series off with. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep this simple, and we're gonna get into the breakdown of Starlink, the pros and the cons. And yeah, let's get into step one. The first thing is Starlink, the actual dish itself, quality? I would probably give it about an 8 out of 10. The biggest drawback to that is the cord. The cord is an absolute joke. And you've got the modem router on one side and the dish on the other side, and like a 75 to 150 foot cord depending upon what you get, and that's just it, right? You're just stuck kind of running it and weaving it. There's no retraction mechanism. It's not really well thought out. They just threw a cord in there. That's pretty low tech for a high tech company like SpaceX, but whatever. The next thing is it actually a viable solution for the average person? Well, that really comes down to where you're located. If you're in the middle of a city and you've got buildings everywhere, if you've got trees everywhere, then of course satellite is not going to work so well. Whereas if you're in the middle of a situation where you have clear line of sight, like right now we're in the middle of nowhere, Utah, and it works incredible. We have great speeds. I'll show some speeds here, and it works incredible. That's because, I mean, I could sit here and hop on the iMac, show you guys these speeds, and this is in the middle of nowhere. So you might be in the middle of the city, have no service, be in the middle of nowhere and have the best service ever, or at least good service like I have here. I've had much better in other locations. Now, another thing to keep in mind when you're looking at this process and when you're looking at Starlink is it privacy based? Is it something you have to actually put in your name? Should you get a business solution? And what a lot of people have been asking me is, Cody, does it work with a ghost business? Yes, 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 and yes. Now let me break this down. Should you get the Starlink business version? In my opinion, no, I did not. I got the RV version. So you've got the regular version, the RV version, and the business version. The business version is just if you have a ton of people on it. I do not. I don't have a company of 50 or 100 or 500 people. So for me, the business version is not necessary. It's basically the same thing, just much more expensive. And in all fairness, they prioritize that, as they should, because they charge like 5 times as much. The next one is the personal version. Well, I can't use the personal version because I'm too nomadic. I move around a lot. And the reality with that is you've got to change the service address, and some service addresses are available, some service addresses are not available. So it creates a big issue. When it first came out, a lot of RVers were doing that. It created a nightmare for some people. A lot of nomads were doing that. It created a nightmare for some people, and it wasn't as good of a solution as it could have been. So then what is the next thing that you can do? What is the next logical option? Well, the next logical option is having an RV version, a nomad version, a version where you could use it anywhere. That's what I have. It's very simple to set up. You literally plug and play. You have this app where it finds the clear line of sight where its closest satellites are, the dish auto spins into place and just locks in, and you're pretty good. There is some latency issues, there is some drop-offs, but I've noticed not enough to actually bother anything I'm doing. So it hasn't bothered anything I'm doing on client calls, on calls with friends, just regular leisure calls. Hasn't blocked anything on streaming. So when my kids are streaming their favorite Lego Wars or whatever show they decide to watch in the evening to wind down, it's not causing any issues. So that's not really a problem. The next thing is looking at, is it a problem moving it from place to place? In my opinion and in my experience, no. It's actually a great option. The next thing that logically you guys are going to ask is, can you get Starlink privately and anonymously? And the answer is yeah. What I use is a ghost business. Now, a ghost business in a name that looks like a personal name with an authorized user card. So what we do is we structure a ghost business. It's something we've done for, I can't even count how many clients, well over 1,000. And we structure it to the point where you have a ghost business in a alias name, and then we get an authorized user card and we utilize that to sign up. And so you might be thinking, well, I thought you have to get a business account to do that. You do not, because you sign up for the RV account, which is the gray area. Now, if you were trying to do it on a personal account, you would. Now, you might be asking, well, can you do an RV account even if you're like an apartment? Yeah, a lot of people do. The one thing to keep in mind is about 20 bucks a month more, but is your privacy worth 20 bucks a month? In my opinion, it is. You have to make that decision yourself, because if you save that 20 bucks, you will have to give your personal information. So this is a gray area, a loophole that I want you to understand. If you sign up as a person, you're going to have to sign up with your personal information. If you sign up as a business, it's real easy to sign up as a business, but you spend a ton more money. If you sign up as an RV, that gives you a little bit of a gray area because there's a lot of digital nomads. And frankly, Starlink's just trying to grow and get their market share right now. So getting an account now and getting grandfathered in and getting everything set up is vital and will add a lot of value to you in this process as you move forward. So I think Starlink is great for that. I think getting that plan, and also it's easy to move with. So even if you're an apartment, and let's say you move once a year, well, then it makes it super simple instead of calling your cable company and fighting with them for 10 minutes and nothing happens and going back and forth. So this makes the whole process a lot simpler across the board. You basically control your own internet. You control the entire process, which is extremely important, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. You're going to have to decide to do whatever it is you want to do for your internet solution. So those are the core things that I've been getting asked about Starlink, and would I recommend it? Yeah. Now, would I recommend it more than MoFi? It depends on your situation. If you live in the city or you live in a urban area or even some place in the suburbs, I'll tell you right now, my house in Vegas, the MoFi crushes. It has lightning speeds. You look at the VPNs. Now, and that's another thing. Let me touch on VPNs real quick. Is Starlink as secure as the MoFi? No, because it doesn't have the built-in VPN. But can you make Starlink secure? Of course, because it's just coming into your machine. So I've talked a lot about Unix and virtual machines and being able to tether your workstation, mobile, you can even use mobile utility, or you could use plug and play type OSs. You can use live sandbox style OSs and then toggle them on and off whenever you're interested in doing that. I've talked about this in the past. I help a lot of clients with the tech stack of how you structure when you go ghost, how you stay ghost. And these are a lot of the things we utilize, a lot of the pieces of technology and software that we use to do that. Similar with Starlink. Is Starlink a big threat? No, it's like a lot of basic internets where you create your password. Is that enough? No. But as long as they can't get into your machine, that becomes the vital part. The other thing is, because it's satellite, is it as secure as a fiber connection or a wired connection, a coaxial connection, depending upon what type of internet you have? Sadly, the United States is falling behind in fiber based on other countries. Even third world countries are passing us that, and a lot of places are still using old school coaxial and other means. Some of them are still using old school phone lines to be able to transmit signal. Is satellite falling behind that? Absolutely not. Is it less secure? Absolutely not, if done properly. And that is one place where I think Starlink has done an incredible job. And I guess it would be the SpaceX team has done an incredible job to be able to structure these things possible. Also, as they deploy more satellites. Now, for a long time, people didn't want to use Starlink because the latency and the lack of satellites. Is that still a thing? In my experience, no. I know probably 30 to 40 people who have Starlink, and they've all said it's either why it's got better, or the ones who've got it more recently have said it's incredible. So I'm not seeing the same problems they had even 6 months ago, certainly not a year ago when it was brand new and they were just getting some satellites. There's so many satellites now. Also, being a nomad, if I go to like an RV park or these other things while I'm on this adventure right now, a lot of people have Starlink. Does that kind of bog it down, or is that an issue? No. Now here's the thing: if you go to an RV park and let's say it's got 100 people, right, and you're utilizing your cell phone, most likely you have Verizon, T-Mobile, or AT&T, or Sprint. Is Sprint even still a thing? But most likely you have one of those. Even with like 100 other RVers, you're going to notice a noticeable drop. Now, 5G has slightly helped that, but 5G comes with a host of other problems, and I've done dedicated videos on 5G and the disaster that is. But in theory, if 5G does help anything, that's one thing it does help. With Starlink, have I seen the same drops? No, I've seen substantially less drops, even if I see dishes out in front of a bunch of other RVs, which I do. You see them everywhere, from van lifers to Class A's to Class C's to, tow behinds like my toy hauler here, to whatever it is. And I even see people putting Starlink like in truck campers and stuff, like everywhere, all over the place. You're seeing Starlink, and it's a great option. It's a great option. I'm actually going to put my dish right now. I just put it out front of my rig, out in front of my truck right now. I just bought a 2022 Ford F-250 6.7 turbo diesel to pull this, which, not a problem. But I put it out there in front of that because, or like on the tailgate sometimes, so it gets clear line of sight. But I plan on actually mounting it to a flagpole on the ladder on the side of the toy hauler here. So we'll see how that works, and I'll do a video if that changes anything or that makes anything better. But I wanted to give you guys my initial impressions, my 1 month impressions on Starlink. Once we really get it dialed in, once I get the cables actually ran, so I'm not just stringing it out there like a rookie like I am right now. But I get so many questions about Starlink, and so I figured my first video in this series would be about Starlink. I've got a lot of videos coming up on other internet solutions I use. Like I said, I technically have 5 internet solutions on the road right now that are not counting mobile devices like a phone. So 5 other internet solutions. So obviously, running 2 companies, having employees back in Vegas and doing this whole thing from the road, I have to have internet regardless. So it's an expense that's worth it to me. It's probably not worth it to you to spend what I spend on internet unless you own companies and you're on the road like I am. But I'm going to give you guys the best solutions. I'm going to compare apples to apples. I'm going to do dedicated videos on each one, and then I'm going to tell you guys what I recommend each one for each situation. But if you're traveling, Starlink is worth it. Now, is Starlink my go-to internet? It's actually not. It's my number 3, which is crazy as that sounds. As good as Starlink is, I'm actually uploading this video on Starlink today, and as good as it is, it's actually 3 of 5 because there are better options for convenience. And that's the thing where Starlink falls short, is it's not super convenient, and it can be a little fickle. You can't have it bumped, kids and dogs and those things. That's not ideal. So convenience is key. So keep that in mind when you're going through this process. Anyway, guys, appreciate you checking out this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Putting out new content all the time here on Privacy X. We are back with a new series. You guys have requested, you're like, Cody, these videos are great and all, but can we see some stuff actually in action? You guys have been asking me that for about 6 months, because most of my videos in the last 6 months to a year have just mostly been me in my office grinding it out, showing you guys. Well, I don't want to stand behind my desk anymore and tell you guys all the greatest stuff. I want to show you the greatest stuff, hear from the road in the real world, how I configure this stuff, how I concoct it, how I put it together, and that's going to be a great option for me, whether it's the solar on my roof because I have a full solar setup, or my Blue Eddy, which I showed you earlier in this video, which I can utilize for completely off-grid, 100% off-grid battery power, and have internet from literally anywhere. And I think that's important with the way things are going and where things are going in this world. The other thing I get asked a lot about is EMPs, and I'm going to touch on that. A lot of people are getting a little ridiculous with some of these doomsday scenarios, because you got to keep in mind that if the government goes too far, what do? They take away their own power, and they're not willing to do that. The one thing they're not willing to do is take away their own power. So you've got to meet them where they are. You've got to match what they're actually going to do. A lot of people think the government's going to send us back to the Stone Ages, and that's just simply absolutely not going to happen unless it happens through a World War III, basically mutual assured destruction type of scenario. But is the government actually going to attack the citizens in that way? No, they're not. Are they going to attack the citizens? Of course they are. They have throughout history, and how they're going to do it, I'm going to break down how I am mitigating these things in future videos. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, because lots of cool stuff coming out. But you need to meet them where they are. It's easy to scare yourself into thinking the world's going to end tomorrow, but I need you to remember that ever since the world began, people have been saying the world's going to end. Okay, there's been predictions that the world's going to end. There's been people out there shouting the end, the end. It was going to be the end in 2000, Y2K, in 2005, 2008, everything was over. 2010, 2012, the Mayan calendar. I mean, guys, the world has been ending for 2,000 years now, and it just hasn't happened. So as opposed to scaring yourself into a bunker and not living a good life, why don't you take precautions and mitigate, understand that things have gotten bad and they're getting bad, protect yourself, and take action and go all into a plan for you and your family. Have an amazing day, guys, and I'll see you guys somewhere from the road. In fact, I got some information coming up where I will actually be able to meet some of you. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for lots of updates. And yeah, have an amazing day.